Okay, today we are going to fill our dragon eye with watercolor markers. I chose three that I like. You don't have to choose these colors. You can pick whatever colors you want. When you use these, you just kind of outline the outside edges. You don't color it in like a regular marker, and that will waste a lot of the watercolor paint that's inside of it. So you just kind of outline the outside edges, and then I'll do the little skin flaps over here with my orange. And then what you're going to do is you're going to barely tip your brush into the water. Just the very tip of your brush should be wet. And you're going to use that very tip to just kind of lightly go back and forth and spread that color around. The outside edges are going to stay darker where I put the watercolor marker. And the inside's going to be a little bit lighter. And that's exactly what you want for your shading. So again, I'm just using the very tip of my brush. It's hard to tell in the video. But I'm using the very tip to get wet, and I'm just kind of using the tip of my brush to lightly shade it in. If you get too much water on there, it could bleed into the next section. One way to help prevent that is I do every other section. So when I go to do his scales, I'm going to skip every other row to give those other rows a little bit more time to dry before I go back and fill in the rows of scales that I missed. If you put way too much water on there and you think it might be a problem, you could try to use your washcloth and just barely pat right over where the water is. Don't rub it, or else you're going to smear your color and it'll get everywhere. When I fill in the scales, I'm just doing the inside, like closest to his eye, and then the outside edges of it. I don't really do all four edges of my rectangle scales. I just think it looks better that way. You can kind of do whatever you want. If you want to do four sides, that's fine. Just don't color in the whole scale. That's going to be way too much watercolor, and it won't give you that cool shading to give it more of a realistic effect. So I'm going to fill all my scales in. Then I'm going to take my watercolor or my brush and dip it into my water again, just the very edges. Now right there I put a little bit too much water. That kind of gives me a little bit of problem later. Not too bad of a problem, but I should have used a little bit less water. The brush should almost be dry because you just need a tiny amount to be able to get that watercolor to work. So I'm going to skip the next row of scales to give that time to dry a little bit more. And again, I'm just going to outline the edges and then like the side closest to the eye and fill those in. And I'm going to kind of go around the little horns that I gave him because I think I'm just going to leave those white. Some people like to make them brown, black, whatever is your choice. I just think I like them white, kind of like they're made out of bone. So after I get those filled in, oops, I forgot one right there. Got to pay attention. Then I just go back and put my brush into the water, the very tip of it, and then just kind of blend it around. Now whenever you go from one color to the next color with these brushes, you really want to wash off that brush good and then wipe it off on that washcloth that I give you, so that if there's any like blue still left on there, it won't get into my orange that I'm going to be doing right now. So I want to make sure my brush is nice and clean, or else I'm going to get like a blue smudging inside of my orange. So I'm just following that row around again and just skipping one in between. Just kind of trying to pay attention to where I am and what I'm doing and giving some space between my wet scales as I go. And once I get that finished all the way out to the edge, I'm going to kind of check out my paper, see if it kind of looks dry, and then just start filling in the scales that I skipped earlier. Now to give it even more time to dry, when I fill in these rows of scales, I'm going to wait till I'm done with all of them before I start getting them wet with my water. Basically, like I said, that just gives it a little bit more time to dry so that it doesn't bleed into your other scales. Once I finish that, I'm going to go back and get my water on my brush, just a tiny bit again, and I'm going to go and fill in my scales. Now sometimes, like if you put your hand down on your paper, it might smear it. So sometimes I use my pinky to balance my hand so it keeps it off the paper while I'm painting so I don't smear my color everywhere.